Working. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the December Council meeting for 2023. I'd like to start with a welcome and acknowledgement of country. Wodonga Council acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the first inhabitants of the country and as traditional custodians of the land. We respect their ancestors, elders and young people and recognise their continuous connections to lands, waters and communities across the country. Just as another little housekeeping thing, tonight you'll notice that a number of councillors are attired in Christmas attire. There's a number of things about that. The first thing is, well, we're leading into Christmas, but the second thing is it's paying a homage to former councillor Watson. Former councillor Watson always turned up to the December meeting of council, quite often the only councillor, would always turn up to the December meeting of council wearing some form of Christmas attire and often looking somewhat out of place and not in conformity with everybody else around the room. So it became a bit of a tradition, and just to pay homage to the late Councillor Watson, we've decided that we would follow suit and do the right thing by him tonight. So thank you to those councillors that have done it, and that's what it's all about. Moving right along, apologies, leave of absence and attendance by electronic means. We have no request for electronic means attendance. We have no apologies. I think we have 2 leaves of absence. Councillors?
Yes, Mr Mayor, thank you. Applying for a leave of absence from the 12th of February next year through to 24th of March next year inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Poulton, you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mine is well in advance for the 24th of June, which is a Monday, through until the 29th of July, which is also a Monday, inclusive. And unfortunately, I'll be out of contact for almost all that duration. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to accept the applications for leave? Councillor Chamberlain, Councillor Lowe. No debate or discussion, so I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any conflicts? No. Thank you. Moving on to confirmation of minutes from the last council meeting. Do I have a motion? Councillor Chamberlain, Councillor Lowe, Councillor Chamberlain, is there any matters you wish to raise on it? No matters. Okay, I put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. There being no questions, we will skip across question time. There being no petitions, we'll cross that. There are no delegates' reports. The next item on the agenda is the election of the mayor, and we pass that to the CEO.
You have to do this part first of electing the 1 year, and then it goes across to.
Okay, all right, okay. I'm told we have to do the election, do the process to determine for 1 year, even though there's only 1 year left in the term. Seems a bit something, but anyway. So can I have a motion to that effect? Councillor Chamberlain and Lowe. As recommended, yeah. I take it there's no discussion?
Unless we want to elect the mayor for life.
Okay, put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Now, pass across to the CEO for the processes of election of the mayor. Do you want this bit of paper? Yeah. All right, where do you want me to go? Down the other end. All right, can I leave that here, can I? No.
Thank you, councillors. I will call for nominations for the position of Mayor. Councillor Quilty.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. I would like to nominate Councillor Ron Mildren.
And do we have a seconder? Councillor Chamberlain. And does the nominee accept the nomination? Any other nominations for Mayor?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Chamberlain, please, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder? Thank you. And does the nominee accept? Decline. Thank you. Any other nominations for Mayor?
Nominate councillor Lowe, please, Mr. CEO.
And a seconder? Councillor Poulton. And agreed by the nominee. Any other nominations for Mayor? Okay, so we'll start this process with no further nominations for the two candidates and invite all councillors to speak for up to 3 minutes, and we'll go in alphabetical order, starting with Councillor Chamberlain.
Thank you. I appreciate, can I say, the nomination. It had been brought to my attention that I was possibly going to be nominated, and I've had to think long and hard about whether or not to accept that nomination. Given the fact that we've only got 1 year left in our term, I don't think that the current mayor has done a particularly bad job. In fact, I think he's done quite a good job under some fairly difficult circumstances, and I think it would be appropriate from my perspective to give him the chance to continue out with the term and some continuity going forward through to the end of this council's 4-year period. The whole idea of having a 1 year term was purely a case from my perspective, being the new councillor last year, is let's wait and see. We're thinking about changing the head, and if he's a complete disaster, we got a chance to step away from it. I don't think that's been the case. Obviously, there's always controversy in these sorts of things, and there's opinions in both in to and fro. But on balance, I think Ron Mildren has done a very good job, and that's why I'll be supporting him tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now invite Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Councillor Simpendorf, for the nomination. I'm not naive enough to know where I think the votes are laid tonight, but what I will do is speak to my fellow councillors in the fact that I haven't had a chance to really talk to you as such, because no one has really asked me in depth about it. The reason why I've accepted the nomination is more hoping to, there's a perception in the community, whether it be right or wrong, that this chamber can be a little bit like romper room sometimes. And to be honest, when I'm sitting in it, it actually feels like romper room sometimes. And so do some of our briefing sessions. So I want to, there's a perception out there that there's a divide on our council, and I acknowledge most of our voting goes 5-1, 5-2. I think if someone actually sat down and worked out the fact, do we go 4-3, there's probably half a dozen times in the 4 million votes that we actually do go 4-3. But there's a perception there. And I think a change of role, I heard last year that when Councillor Poulton and Councillor Mildren were both nominated, I heard last year that a change of style, a change of leadership, that we can all be leaders, and we all are leaders. Our community voted us in here. Our community said, we want you to lead us. We want you to be our conduit. Yet we don't have to have the same view. We don't have to have the same values, but we have to work for our community. I don't have the skill set. I don't have 25 years of planning skill set. I don't have a media training career that's given me the ability to speak as well as Kev does in front of media and in front of people. But what I do have is 50 years of lived experience. You know, I walked into and got the single mother's pension once. Yep, it was called a single mother's pension. I had that changed to a single parent's pension. I sat in at work and I'd buy a gentleman a coffee every day, a homeless guy, every morning for 1 month until he disappeared. Not because I wanted to put it on TikTok, not because I wanted to put it on Instagram, but that's how my mum brought me up. Do something for others. I didn't do it for a pat in the back, and I don't do this for a pat in the back. And I don't think any of us should let our egos get in the way of working better with each other for the community. So I'm imploring you guys to consider me as an option for mayor to help bring this team together and help lead us to the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Now invite councillor Simpfendorfer. My spelling is not in the right order, so I'll change that round to councillor Poulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Have we missed councillor Hall? And councillor Mildren? Are we? Yeah. I was still thinking about my commentary, so if we just don't start the time until I've actually collected myself, that'd be great. Thanks, Mr. Chair. First of all, I must say I respect Councillor Chamberlain's decision not to accept the nomination. It's been a tough consideration for himself. I also respect my colleagues that heeded my wishes for me not to be an option this evening. So thank you for that. It's funny you mentioned, Councillor Lowe, about upbringings. I've always been of the mind that if you don't have something nice to say, you don't say anything at all. And depending on who I speak about in this room, that would limit whether I say much at this point in time or not. But when I think of what you embody as what I thought was probably the second sensible choice after Councillor Chamberlain, to try to bring and work with 6 other councillors together collectively. Having walked and seen the 3 years, I guess, that we've had together, or shorter terms for a couple of you, I thought either of you two would have had that skill. So I will be supporting you this evening, Councillor Lowe, because I think you have that skill, you have that genuine desire and that genuine attempt to give back and to lead a city and your colleagues. And as I said, I respect Councillor Chamberlain's difficult decision to not accept my nomination this evening. Thank you.
In any random order whatsoever, we'll go to councillor Hall next. Thank you.
Yes, I'll be supporting Councillor Mildren as mayor. Councillor Mildren has been on council for 7 years like myself, so has gained a lot of experience, as well as he's got the had some background in councils before. It's been a hard year and he's been extremely professional, and I think he's worked well at his job, and I've been told that by many people that I've come across in the community. I think, and having worked with him over this time, I found him to be, he's been a passionate advocate for this city, and his knowledge of local government is extensive, and I greatly value his input into our council briefings and meetings. Councillor Mildren actually listens to what you have to say and values your opinion. This is important to me, but also I hear this from many community, hear this comment from many people in the community as well. Councillor Millen is a strong supporter of transparency and process, not only for councillors but also for the public as well. We need a strong leader that we can trust, respect, and most importantly, rely on to do the best for our city and community. And I see these attributes, as I've mentioned, as vital for a leadership role as the Mayor, and I see these in Ron. Ron, in my view, is a good problem solver. He has provided strong leadership during his first term of Mayor. His abilities and experience is what I believe is needed for Mayor to take the city forward for the best possible outcomes, whether that be local, state and federal. He has excelled, I believe, in all those areas, with meeting with ministers and bureaucrats. I've absolutely no hesitation in supporting Councillor Ron Milton for Mayor, and I trust him as a person, and I trust his abilities to provide the leadership that is required of a Mayor of this city.
Thank you. I invite councillor Quilty.
Thank you. This is the fourth time I have nominated Ron Mildren for the position of the Mayor. Last year I was successful. Last year Councillor Mildren was successful in getting the position, and I was successful in wishing that he would. My reasons last year relied on his personal quality, such as Councillor Mildren is future-focused. He is financially and economically astute, which became evident in many of our economic development discussions, for example, with Logic and other economic development strategies. It's not a secret, and it's very evident that Councillor Mildren is very committed to service to the community. He is a smart person. He is objective, polite, and level-headed. In the last 12 months I believe we have had, he has never disappointed me in those qualities, even though we voted and held different opinions on a number of issues on a number of occasions. Councillor Mildren, May Mildren, always remained objective, always allowed his colleagues and council staff to bring their opinion to the table, and always himself, and encourage the others to give it proper consideration. As Councillor Hall has mentioned, Councillor Mildren works very effectively with governments at all levels. At the same time, he works very effectively with business and community groups, and he has a very good communication skills, communicates his messages clearly. I believe Councillor Mildren also has had good communication to us. He has always kept us up to date about any meetings that he has had, news that he has heard before we did, even if he could read something at a meeting between the lines, he would share it with us and ask our opinion. This became evident through hospital advocacy and other work that we have done in the last 12 months. I have no hesitation in supporting Councillor Mildren. This is not to say that other nominees or prospective nominees would have done a worse job. I think any councillor here who wished to be nominated would perform a good job, but I believe that in the current political and economic conditions, and given how much time we have left in our tenure, Councillor Mildren would be our best choice. Thank you.
Councillor Mildren.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Thank you to Councillor Quilty and to Councillor Chamberlain for the nomination. At the start of the term, the recent just finished mayoral term, I made a few comments about how I wanted to run things, and one of them was I wanted to involve the Deputy Mayor in all of the normal processes and things that we did, the meetings that we have, and so on, and particularly like the CEO's weekly or fortnightly meetings. And we've done that, and it's worked really well. And I would continue to do that, irrespective of who might end up in the deputy's role. The other observation I'd make, we hear things about divisions, and I think I agree with Councillor Lowe. We hear about divisions, but if you go back over the meetings over the last 12 months, and probably over a lot longer than that, the vast majority of decisions around this council table are unanimous decisions. If they're not unanimous, they can be 6-1 or they can be 5-2. It's reasonably rare to have a 4-3 divide. It happens, but that's okay. And it's good to have strong-willed differences of opinions, and I intend to continue to support that. Looking back over the year, we said we'd endeavour to reach out to a wider cross-section of the community, and that's being done. We've kicked off a robust and very wide-reaching program to develop a 2020 vision and strategic planning, and the consultation that we're doing with that is something that I think is unique and very new to this council, and it is a absolute credit to the staff that have put this together. They've listened to what all the individual councillors have said, and they've put together a program that is endeavouring to reach a really wide array of people in our community, and I think that's a strong outcome over the last 12 months. We've sought to have business of council done in a more open and transparent way, which I believe that's actually happening. We have certain things. We've established a Budget and Finance Committee, which opens some of those things up into the public arena. When it comes to the hospital, we said we would continue to advocate for the hospital and health services that we need and deserve. And we said we would persist in getting a meeting with the Health Minister. And although it took 9 months or thereabouts to get there, we actually ended up with a meeting with the Health Minister. And that opened a few other doors as well, and things have moved quite a bit since then. We said we would seek to build relationships with ministers and political representatives across all levels of government, and we've done so with both the Victorian and Commonwealth governments in a range of portfolios, and we've built stronger relationships with all our local members across all political parties represented here. Over the journey, I've met with every single local member that represents us both at the Victorian Upper House and Lower House. Thank you. Two more things. The significance raised in profile capability of economic development, seeking to reach higher and national international connections, and we've set in place processes to pursue financial sustainability. Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Thank you. I'll invite Councillor Simpfendorfer.
Thanks, Mr. CEO. I don't think mine will be going near the time limit. I guess I've had the luxury to go last year in this event, and I genuinely nominate Councillor Lowe for, I guess, around the table as another option, particularly the way I've seen you over the time, the last 3 years, remaining level-headed and, I guess, probably the most independent that I've seen in around what we're doing here around the table and some of those divisions that may be perceptions. But I've had to think on this off the top of my head because until walking into the room, do we know who was actually going to accept or decline nomination? So it's been hard to prepare from my point of view as to what would say. And there seems to be some short memories considering last year we said we needed change and what's wrong with change, but now we need to not change it because it's only a short way away. The Monitor's report said there was no issues, but the recent letter from the Minister says there's still governance concerns. I fear that the Minister does want to see change, hence why nominating Councillor Lowe. We'll find out more about that and time will say. My experience has been significantly different to other councillors around the room in relation to the last 12 months, and that's all I'll say on that because this is a professional room. I will finalise my voting to Councillor Lowe because I've got the very unique position in this room of being the only person that's done both roles as the Mayor for about 2 months. I'm not seeking that, obviously we know what played out there, but the Mayor for 2 months and the Deputy Mayor for a year, so I know what it takes to do both roles. And I think Councillor Lowe would have been a great option in the current environment with what we're facing. But I don't think it's going to go that way. So thank you, Mr. CEO, for the time to speak.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll now put the nominations to the vote and we'll have a go in alphabetical order. So councillor Lowe. Those in favour of councillor Lowe as mayor? Councillor Lowe. Councillor Simpfendorfer. Councillor Poulton. Those in favour of councillor Mildren as mayor? Councillor Mildren. Councillor Hall. Councillor Chamberlain and Councillor Quilty. Councillors, a majority of votes with Councillor Mildren, and I'll congratulate Councillor Mildren in another term as mayor and invite you back to the meeting to chair the rest of the meeting. Thank you, councillors.
Okay. Thank you, councillors, and thank you, councillor Lowe. I'll endeavour to try and work and engage things with you through the process through the year as well. So thank you for putting your hand up. I appreciate the fact that I've been given the job again and trusted with the role, and I'll endeavour to do equally as well or better than what I've done previously, and we'll work hard to try and keep the council on a straight line to work through the issues that we've got coming up in front of us. Let's move on to the election of the Deputy Mayor. Can I call for nominations for Deputy Mayor, please? Councillor Hall.
I would like to nominate Councillor Danny Chamberlain.
Sorry, we have to go through the motion of deciding to have a Deputy Mayor again. So do I have a motion, Councillor Chamberlain?
As recommended.
Yep. Councillor Hall, any discussion?
Can I just clarify? It does say in the recommendation.
Okay. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. So let's move on. Councillor Hall.
I would like to nominate Councillor Danny Chamberlain.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Quilty. Do you accept Councillor Chamberlain? Yes. Thank you. Any other nominations? Councillor Simpendorfer.
Councillor Poulton, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lowe. Councillor Poulton, do you accept? No, I don't think so. Okay. So you wish to move adjournment? Yep. Anybody wish to second that motion? Councillor Lowe, no discussion on that? No, I'll put the motion. Yes?
Should we call for all the nominations, assuming there's not all the nominations, and then adjourn?
Yeah, sorry. It's a procedural motion, so once it's put, and we'll have to come back and deal with that after the event. Yeah. So put the motion. All those in favour of adjournment? 5-minute adjournment. Is that adequate time? Okay, we'll adjourn into the ante-room. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome back. Councillor Poulton, have you made a call?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to my colleagues for allowing me to give some consideration, although 5 minutes not quite being enough. I think for the future of the city and the citizens that live in it, I think I'm best to accept the nomination. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other nominations? Thought you were about to press the... There being no other nominations, we go to the speaking, and we should use the alphabetical order of the CEO. Have you got your alphabetical order list there, Mr. CEO?
It's not in alphabetical order, but you can use the list, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Chamberlain, would you wish to go first?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have the privilege of being low in the alphabet, so I get a run first every time. I'm happy to accept the nomination from Councillor Hall. If Councillor Hall had have wished to continue in the role, I would have been more than happy to nominate her and indeed vote for her to continue. I think she's done a fine job, and I could only hope to do half as good a job as she's done in the last 12 months. She's been a good support to the Mayor, and she's been very informative to the rest of the council. I appreciate Councillor Poulton's decision to accept the nomination. That's a fair call. This is not a competition, I suppose it is, but realistically we're all here to try and work for the best outcomes for the city of Wodonga and all the people in that city. I think my position in this regard is to support Councillor Mildren. I bring a very different skill set, if you want to call it that, to Councillor Hall, who was the previous Deputy Mayor. The Mayor will, in no uncertain terms, know my opinion on virtually any decision or, in fact, any matter before the council and before what we're doing going forward. I appreciate all the councillors' input. I'd like to work with everybody coming together. I do wish, under certain circumstances, as I said before, that I was in a position to possibly accept the nomination for Mayor, but I think I can do justice to the role of Deputy Mayor. It's not as demanding, but it's certainly got its own demands upon it. And having spoken to my family and my work colleagues and other councillors, as I said, if Councillor Hall wasn't prepared to run, I was prepared to put my hand up, and I'm happy to accept it. And I wish everyone the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. Councillor Lowe.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you to Councillor Hall for her time spent as Deputy. Thank you very much. I thought you did a good job, and I appreciated the way that you kept your political alliance outside of what you did in the chamber, so that those views you kept well separate. So thank you for that. It was totally community focused, which is what it should be. And I wish both Councillor Chamberlain and Councillor Poulton good luck, and thank both of them for their acceptance of this. I'm voting in favour of Councillor Poulton tonight. And again, not only did he not know he was getting nominated, I didn't know he was getting nominated either. So I haven't got a pre-prepared speech or a preconceived view either. But what I can say is similar to what I said for my voicing of my determination to be Mayor, I suppose, was that this is an opportunity to look outside this perceived 4-3 vote and have someone with the skills and credentials that Councillor Poulton does work alongside or underneath, not quite the right word, I don't think, but be an assistant to the Mayor. I think if we're looking for a way for unity, that would be one way that we could show the community of what unity may or may not look like. But it's more about Councillor Poulton. I heard many things that the Mayor and that have achieved over that, but I think that was us as a council team as opposed to the Mayor pulling those things off one by one. So I appreciate the fact that we've had all those achievements, but I think it was a team that pulled that together. And a lot of that was put in place before those achievements were made before, well, actually in Councillor Poulton's term as Mayor. So the wheels were already set in motion there. But again, I'll be voting in favour of Councillor Poulton tonight for some unity and a way to get a better public outlook from our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Councillor Poulton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, thank you for my councillors for allowing me some time just to think about it, because it certainly wasn't on my radar when I walked out of the room. But as I listened to some rationale from Councillor Simpfendorfer as to why he would make such a nomination, I reflected upon a few things quite quickly. I reflected upon the fact that I spent 12 months as a mayor without a deputy mayor. I know what it's like not to have one. I know what it's like to have one that was green, so to speak, and did his darndest to offer support. And I can't exactly speak for what support you have or haven't received from Councillor Hall over 12 months, because I haven't been present enough to see it or see it celebrated enough. But what I would say is, if I was a mayor of this current stage of this council, which I'm not, I'd be hoping for a strong set of hands beside me that actually had experience and could lighten the load. Call me lazy if you will, but I'd always look for somebody who could make my life easier. And that's no disrespect to you, Councillor Chamberlain, but I guess you've got to think of the history, the last 3 years, the experience outside of chambers and things like that. If you're going to compare one horse to another, you're not going to get the same comparison between the two options before council tonight. So, you know, I guess Councillor Lowe is correct in the sense that when he says, does it show unity? I've given that some consideration in the last 10 minutes or so as well. And I think whilst you've got this perception or real divide that's 4-3 when it comes to certain topics, i.e. elections, it probably would be a powerful message to the community to say, you know what, Ron and Kev are working together. I don't know, that could be pretty powerful, because based on everything that comes back to me from the people we represent, it's always like, what are you two going to do to sort yourselves out? I don't have a plan to sort anything out. You know, I do my best each time I walk into this chamber to make sure that the views of others is represented well and truly before my own. So maybe that's a skill set perhaps that I could bring to this equation. Maybe that's something that my colleagues might value at this point in time, or maybe not. Maybe, you know, we just stick with multiple decade friendships and things like that. I know that's sort of been a bit of a struggle between two of my colleagues over the past month or so as they have the discussions about leadership in terms of how do you provide feedback to someone that you've known so well versus somebody that you don't really know that well. So I see a competitive advantage for this council to perhaps support me. I do see some rationale behind what I'm hearing so far. But I'm also big enough and ugly enough to take care of myself and know that if councillors don't want to support that's fine. I've just had a wonderful 12 months of resetting myself with my lovely 5 kids and wife, and which this council's always said to me when I was mayor. They've said family first, Kev, family first, and they've always supported that. Every single person I've worked with has supported that. And here's my chance to accept that if councillors want my experience, my expertise more permanently and more available and more readily, it's there. And if not, I'm okay with that too. So thank you, councillors. Look forward to the vote.
Thank you, Councillor Poulton. Councillor Hall.
Yes. So I nominated Councillor Danny Chamberlain. I know he will make a great deputy mayor as well. As a councillor, he's always been an active member of council with a strong interest in all that we do, and especially when it comes to the council community engagement. His commitment to Wodonga and its people is unquestionable. I found working with Councillor Chamberlain over this last year, he's a great contributor to our council group and is easy to get along with. His decision-making at council has always been made with thoughtful consideration and in what he sees to be in the community's best interest at heart. Councillor Chamberlain has also been a champion for council transparency and honesty, quality attributes for a deputy leadership position. His dedication to the Wodonga community is obvious to anyone who gets to meet or know him personally. Councillor Chamberlain, I know, will provide good, strong leadership alongside the Mayor for the betterment of our city, and I have absolutely no doubt about this and his ability to excel in the position. I'd like to take the opportunity to wish Councillor Chamberlain, if successful in the election tonight, all the best in taking on the role of Deputy Mayor of this city. As I said, I believe he'll make a good leader. Also to Councillor Poulton for his nomination and his passion to be a leader for this city. There's no doubt about that. He did provide good leadership in his time as Mayor, and I wish him all the best in the Deputy Mayor vote tonight as well.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Quilty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I must say we have two very good and worthy candidates tonight, and Councillor Poulton has made some very, very good points on very short notice. Councillor Poulton is qualified, is experienced. He's served 2 terms as mayor, which gives him a wealth of experience. And he really does make a good pair, would make a good pair to Mayor Mildren. I think they have somewhat contrasting personalities and somewhat contrasting experience, whether it's a life or profession, and nothing works more effectively than completely different people. However, I'm really in 2 minds here. Both Councillor Chamberlain and Councillor Poulton are indeed big and handsome, and Councillor Chamberlain has had less time than all of us in this tenure. However, his huge experience, his decades of living in Wodonga, him and his family before him, and the knowledge of the city, living and being part of the heart of the city is something that I myself don't have and something that I really value. So yeah, I need to make a decision. I think both candidates are really good, each in their own way. I will be supporting Councillor Chamberlain. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Councillor Simpendorf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just again, to start and reiterate, Councillor Lowe, Councillor Hall, genuinely congratulations on your 12 months as Deputy Mayor. I saw you progress with great confidence and skills in that 12 months. And probably if we'd had this conversation, or if we were having this conversation 3 years ago, you would have laughed at us that you would have done 12 months as Deputy Mayor, but congratulations on your time. I nominated Councillor Poulton tonight. Again, not having a plan coming into tonight was a bit difficult for someone with my experience and how I think, that I like to think things through over a number of days and if not weeks, but sometimes you've got to think on your feet. So I had to do that tonight. Again, probably coming back to some of the statements around why nominating Councillor Lowe, but seeing the current landscape we're facing as a councillor group, that nominating Councillor Poulton, and I have been warned about raising this, but I'll cop that if I don't need to, but having Councillor Poulton, who in his own time and his own costs become a graduate of the Australian Institute of Company Directors, probably puts him in the best position governance-wise and skill set-wise from anyone in the room to fulfil that role and support the Mayor. And he stole my thunder by saying the highlight of being a Mayor without a deputy for the first 12 months when everyone said wouldn't be able to do it. Wood said he's from Albury. What interest does he have in our city? And then COVID hits, and he has to manage that pretty much on his own. So I don't know why we wouldn't go with that experience around the relationships formed in such unique times, both with serving governments and other levels of government. But then to have a deputy, and I saw how tirelessly he worked as mayor, and then, you know, gratefully got a 12 months off to reconnect with the family. So I'm glad you've accepted the nomination. I think those skill sets and attributes would support the mayor in moving forward for this city and collectively in what we're facing in some of those huge challenges of the hospital, of Logic, of Barranduda, of, you know, our budgets struggles. So to actually support the mayor when you've done a lot of that heavy lifting in the first 2 years of your term as mayor, I can't see why we wouldn't go with that experience for the room. And again, no disrespect to Councillor Chamberlain. We heard the argument about it's only 10 months. Well, why wouldn't you capitalise on the skills that we have in the room and put you in the role for 10 months to support the current mayor? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Simpendorfer. No other comments, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour of, since I'll do it in order of nomination, all those in favour of Councillor Chamberlain? Councillor Chamberlain, Councillor Hall, Councillor Mildren, Councillor Quilty. Those in favour of Councillor Poulton? Councillor Lowe, Councillor Poulton, Councillor Simpendorfer. Declare Councillor Chamberlain elected Deputy Mayor. Congratulations.
I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank my fellow councillors, and again for the words, and I take those on board and appreciate everybody. And thanks, Kev. I'd like to think we're only as good as the people that we come up against in these things, and given the quality of the candidate, I appreciate the fact that the council's trusted me with this role. And again, I'd like to reiterate what a fantastic job Councillor Hall's done over the last 12 months. It's been a difficult time. Everyone's aware that there's been some difficulties and the mayor's needed support and he's needed a sounding board. And she's fulfilled that role, I think, very professionally. And I'd just like to congratulate her on her last 12 months. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd just like to reiterate the comments about Councillor Hall's term as deputy. We've worked exceptionally well and we've gone through a few very, very interesting and challenging events and times, and Councillor Hall has challenged the way I think about things, and I think that's only been to the benefit of the whole council. I think we've worked exceptionally well together, and I'm looking forward to the same sort of challenging with Councillor Chamberlain. Thank you. Moving on to the next item, which is 8.3, which is appointment to committees. Councillor Poulton, move the yes, move motion. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to move that essentially the committees, as stated in the report, remain the same, other than Councillor Quilty replacing myself as the representative on the Australia Day Committee. I know she has strong desires to do that, in addition to the Audit and Risk Committee. So essentially the only change I see in that table is for Councillor Quilty instead of myself, and that's how I'd like to move the motion. And also to remove the requirement of a councillor from the Municipal Fire Management Planning Committee, in which case it was Councillor Simpendorfer, with that advice being that position is no longer required, a councillor representative. Hopefully that captures everything you'll need in that motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Poulton. Councillor Simpendorfer seconded. Councillor Poulton, do you wish to speak?
So this is the time of year where councillors reflect upon the committees that they serve on. For anyone interested, they can take a look in tonight's report, page 52 of 302 of the council agenda. And essentially, yeah, through discussion with councillors where they're up to, what time commitments they have and all the rest, we've arrived at those couple of changes that I've put in there. I'm perfectly comfortable support to support that as it stands in my motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Simbanov. No, any other councillors? Councillor Chamberlain?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I do appreciate Councillor Poulton's nomination for this motion. I know it can't be easy because of the fact that he does love the Australia Day Committee and did a fine job on it in the last 12 months, and I do congratulate him on that job. Having said that, Councillor Quilty's been absolutely passionate about the citizenship situation and the Australia Day Committee, and I know that she did step aside for Councillor Poulton last year on the matter that Councillor Poulton wanted it, and she was happy to have him go ahead with that. He did a good job, but she's always been very, very keen, and I think she showed some regret in the fact that she wasn't involved in it, because she's always at our citizenship ceremonies, she's always front and centre, and someone that passionate about the Australia Day stuff is appropriate. And again, the other committees, I think everybody's done a very good job, and we can continue on with that. And I'm more than happy to win the lottery and get the Audit and Risk Committee again for another 12 months. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. Any other councillors? Councillor Quilty?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain, for volunteering to stay on Audit and Risk Committee. Now that you have a new demanding position, Audit and Risk Committee requires a lot of work, a lot of reading. It may seem a bit daunting to start with, and it's 4 very large quarterly meetings a year. It's difficult, it's all behind the scenes, and still it's a little bit of fun. It's important to have 2 councillors there for quorum reasons, so thank you very much. And thank you very much, Councillor Poulton, for giving up your position for me on Australia Day Committee. All the work, all the hard work behind the scenes for Australia Day Committee is usually done before this December meeting. And what's left after the December meeting is the fun part. So Councillor Poulton is kind enough to have done all the hard work for me and allowing me to have the fun part. I really appreciate that. Like I said multiple times, Australia Day means a lot to me. Many years ago, I was standing there receiving my own Australian citizenship on Australia Day. That was in Wodonga. And one of the best days, only maybe second to a few others. And it's great to be able to work towards other people having a fantastic day on the day. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Any other councillors? Councillor Poulton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I can just entertain my council colleagues for a moment. Councillor Quilty's right, all the fun stuff's been done, and it'll be a really good event for the city and the region come January 26th. So I look forward to seeing that all come to place. I just wanted to share with you a story, if I could, as to why I supported Councillor Quilty some time ago now, prior to Councillor Chamberlain's time. And it was very much that reflective of who in this councillor group knew more about becoming an Australian than Councillor Quilty, and I thought that was really good. But one of the other determining factors, and I hope he doesn't mind wherever he's watching on me sharing this story, Councillor Watson was on the Australia Day Committee when I was first mayor, and he introduced me as Mayor Kevin Mack. And so needless to say, that firmed up my support the following year for Councillor Quilty to become part of that committee, because he was extremely embarrassed by that. I took it, it was perfectly fine, but it created some laughter at the time, and those that weren't there at that event. It was just a typical John Watson moment. It was lovely. And we'll miss that this year, but I do know from conversations today in the briefing and also with Councillor Quilty that the appropriate recognition of John's contribution to this city will be made at the Australia Day activity, having that been one of the visions that he had reinforced for many years, well before I started working intimately with him. But it'll have my support tonight. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. The next item on the agenda is 8.4, the draft community funding request policy. Do I have a motion? Councillor Quilty, as recommended. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hall, Councillor Quilty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion in front of us is to endorse the draft community funding request policy and to remove the old community impact grant policy, to revoke community impact grant policy. As many of you will remember, a decision to change the way we allocate community grants was made a few months ago and has been made part of the budget process. We have a community funding request policy, the guidelines for those people and organizations who are applying for community grants, and a little engagement snapshot that should work as a help card, and also a copy of the old impact grant policy. It is, I encourage everybody who seeks to apply for a grant to have a good look at the guidance, at the snapshot, and I encourage everyone who has any difficulties with that to, any questions about the draft, and then any difficulties when the draft becomes the document, to contact either a council staff or ask councillors if they choose to do so for any help that's required. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Councillor Hall.
Yes, just for clarification, this report is up for adoption. It's already been out to for public exhibition. We had this come up in October 4th meeting, and so it's just the formality of endorsing it tonight. As Councillor Quilty said, it's will form part of our budget deliberations, and I support this policy tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Any other councillors? Councillor Poulton? Yes. Question?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just before endorsing this one tonight, I think I might have missed some communication, or I just want to check my understanding on something. Just in the following processes on page 55 of 302, it says training. Councillors and council employees are required to regularly undergo training to detect and prevent fraud and manage conflicts of interest. I guess the question is, we as councillors spend a bit of time on conflict of interest. I don't recall ever receiving yet any training to detect and prevent fraud. Is there plans for us, and has it been booked in yet with this policy?
Councillor Poulton, when we first got elected, there was a small unit that addressed us on fraud issues, but whether you could say that was preparing us to detect fraud might be another matter. Mr. CEO, is there anything in the pipeline that's coming at us to do that sort of training?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, as we went through this policy, we actually went through the VAGO report on fraud prevention and the recommendations around the VAGO report. As our staff have drafted that, they've taken that into consideration. The recommendation out of various reports out of government recently is that councillors revisit all those governance matters on a regular basis, and we will continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Does that answer the question, Councillor Poulton? Thank you. Other councillors? Councillor Quilty to close. Put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Councillor Lowe. I think we have a unanimous vote.
Unanimous.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the draft alcohol harm, as it reads, prevention policy. I believe there's a suggested change from the word prevention to preventative. Do we take that as given, or do we need to include that in a resolution to that effect? Okay. Okay, do I have a resolution, please? Motion. Councillor Chamberlain, seconder.
Yeah, I'd like to move as per recommendation with the change in that the word harm prevention is not used and harm preventative is installed instead. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Quilty, Councillor Chamberlain.
Again, this has gone out to consultation. The only change in that wording was more about the fact that we can't even pretend to fully prevent harm. All we can try to do is minimise the harm that alcohol consumption and indeed the next item, which is gambling, can cause. Both of these activities are legal activities, and in order to have prevention, you'd have to ban it, and that's not within our purview to do. So this is all about minimising harm and trying to have a preventative policy in order to meet that end. Accordingly, as I said, that's the only change to this nomination. It's already been out to consultation and I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Put the motion. All those in favour? Sorry. Okay. Sorry, Councillor Quilty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Indeed, we have two very similar policies in front of us tonight. This one, alcohol harm preventative policy, and the following one, gambling harm preventative policy. As Councillor Chamberlain, we cannot tell people to stop or to continue to take alcohol or to gamble or to do any other substances for that matter. However, we do play a role as municipal council to design our public areas, our events, and our city the way that looks after some potential harm and prevents potential harm. Alcohol abuse or engagement in gambling are only as bad as the harm they might potentially cause. And I believe that the policies here address our role in not stopping, you can't obviously stop everything, but minimizing that harm that those activities could potentially cause to people themselves or people who surround the people engaging in alcohol consumption or gambling. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Other councillors? Councillor Simpendorfer.
Question, Mr. Mayor, probably without notice, but I noticed that this probably relates to both the alcohol and the gambling policy. I saw there was a significant piece of work done by Gateway Health that was submitted to council, I think in October or thereabouts. How influential was that document to drafting this policy? Sorry.
Officers have looked at that feedback that was received, have incorporated some of those elements into some changes in the policy, and also a number of those elements can be incorporated into the next level down, which would be an action plan. That mention of the action plan is now referenced in the policy, so that would be the position for some of the feedback, noting other feedback has been incorporated into the policy where possible, and noting there are also some elements that may not necessarily reflect the role that council plays. However, that does not mean that council cannot advocate for some of those opportunities if they are legislative responsibilities that sit elsewhere.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Officer Hogg. Councillor Simpendorfer, nothing. Any other councillors? Councillor Lowe.
Yeah, I'll just probably pick up on your point there, Councillor Simpendorfer. It probably goes to show why this and other types of documents should go out to the public for comment. there's expertise out there that we could never fulfil in-house. There's people out there that have responded to this from real life experiences, experiences on the ground, and all those need to influence something like this. But the key word that the officer picked up there was action. There's no point in having these documents sitting here in the cupboard if we're not going to do anything with them. So it's really important to, I know some of it's state legislated, but there's no point in us sitting there doing all this work if we're actually not going to do nothing into it. Everyone can sit here and acknowledge that there's an alcohol problem, not only within our region, but Australia-wide. No, we're not the social justice police, you know, but we have a role to play on minimising the harm within our community. And part of that harm in our community is through alcohol consumption. So, you know, I like a beer as much as anybody else, but it's about responsibility of us as a community to the ownership of those problems. And I liked the fact that not only Gateway Health, but there's some other expertise in there that has committed action plans to this. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Other councillors? No? Back to Councillor Chamberlain.
Yes, again, I'd just like to reiterate Councillor Simpendorfer's question on as to whether or not the feedback has been taken into account. The reason we do consultation with the community is to take that into account, and Officer Hogg has pointed out quite correctly that has been carried out. I think it's a good policy. I'm not going to pretend that we're going to fix the problems. I'd like to think that we're certainly not going to contribute to the problems any further than we need to, because there is a big problem out there, and we need to try and do what we can within the limits, and we have limits, to try and help people with those problems. And again, the same applies to the next motion as well. So I'm happy to endorse this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. The next item on the agenda is 8.6, Draft Gambling Harm Prevention Policy. Do I have a motion? Councillor Chamberlain.
Yes, can I move this as recommended with the same change? The word prevention be removed and the word preventative be replaced. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Quilty, Councillor Chamberlain.
Run the risk of having the same speech again. The same rules apply. These are very, very closely tied policies about two problems in the community that we can't pretend to try and fix. They're also both, as I said before, they're both legal. Having said that, there are a number of people who struggle with both alcohol and gambling, and the people that struggle very adversely affects the people around them. So we've got to do what we can to hopefully limit the damage that's done by excessive gambling. As someone who attended the local Wodonga Cup, I can't get too high on my horse, but there's got to be limits to it, and we need to try and minimise the harm where we can. Thank you.
Councillor Quilty. Any other councillor? Councillor Simpendorfer.
Just acknowledging the amount of responses again. I know I highlighted Gateway just before, where there was, I think, 6 or more or thereabouts that did contribute, so I didn't want to single anyone out. I guess thank everyone for their feedback. This is extremely serious harm in gambling and alcohol. I can certainly attest to that, having worked in the town for a long amount of time, seeing that harm firsthand. So I'm pleased to see these policies in place and hopefully adopted tonight, and the action plans that go with them. And I think it's something we need to keep a very close eye on as a council and as a city to support those that are having that harm and hopefully make a difference to their lives. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Simpendorfer. Councillor Quilty, you're reserved. Okay, back to councillor Chamberlain. Put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. The next item is item 8.7, planning permit application 70/2023 for 4 Glenwood Boulevard Service Station and Convenience Restaurant. Mr. CEO, you had a note to make.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, in the officer recommendation, there's a typographical error there. The title on the report is correct, referring to application 70/2023, and that's how the start of the recommendation should read. To grant a planning permit 7/2023, not the number that's in there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Do I have a motion? Councillor Chamberlain.
As per recommendation, thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lowe, Councillor Chamberlain.
This is a difficult issue. There have been a number of submissions. The reason it's come to council is because there's been a number of submissions, and I've certainly taken those submissions on board. My initial thoughts on this were that the positioning of this service station wasn't what I would have hoped, given the fact that it's not within the designated future central business area. Having said that, the fact that it is a service station probably makes it possibly less important that it is in that area. And being on that intersection, which will give good access from every direction and for everybody wishing to use it, and the access plans, which have been, my fears on which have been allayed, where we've learnt what we were doing, and it would appear that the traffic movement shouldn't adversely affect the through traffic and around that facility. Although I did have some reservations initially, on balance, I think I'm going to support this. Thank you.
Councillor Lowe. Other councillors? Councillor Hall.
Yes, like Councillor Chamberlain, it's been a hard decision for me for a few reasons. I acknowledge that there have been 38 objections submitted to council with quite valid reasons. There is no question of the need for a service station in Barranduda. The decision is where it is proposed to go. Prior PSP planning for Barranduda-Leneva corridor planned for a designated business precinct. The service station will be outside of this and, in a sense, fragment future commercial development in the Barranduda-Leneva corridor. But having said that, the IGA supermarket in Barranduda has already done this. So looking at this project with all the information in mind, and I think that with the conditions put on the approval around the entry and exit of the intersection, the business closure time, the possibility that it could be many years for a development to get built within the proposed business precinct, a likely possible VCAT application that could be sought if the development is not back, and the real need for a service station within the Barranduda and Leneva area. I'm still sitting on the fence, but I'm thinking I will approve of it tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Other councillors? No. Councillor Cruelty?
Just like Councillor Hall, I have not completely made up my mind. Hopefully, I'm hoping to hear some more debate, but sounds like probably there won't be any. I would like to thank the community members making their voice heard and telling us the reasons why they do or do not want the station there. I think those reasons are very valid, and in my opinion, it's people who are going to live there and use the services that we should listen to in the first place. On the other part of the scale is the need for the area to have a service station and potential delays if we vote down this application in how long it will take them and possible VCAT in when the area will get a service station. So if there is no more debate, I will have to quickly decide on my feet. But again, I would like to thank again the community for letting us know their thoughts. And I would also like to thank the staff, in particular Officer Schultz, for taking a lot of care to answer all our questions, write us detailed emails addressing our concerns and explaining how it's all potentially going to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Other councillors? Okay. I've got a few things I want to say about this. Fundamentally, I'm not going to support the motion that we've got before us. What we have in the planning system is two components. We have the statutory regulatory process, which has a whole range of provisions, and you can read through those and you can deal with them in isolation, and you can say, yep, that fits the vast majority of things that fall under that. You could say that. We also have strategic planning matters, which we've spent significant amounts of money putting together to deal with the Barrandoodle and Eva precinct structure planning and the developer contributions planning. We've gone to a lot of trouble to put in place very solid or reasonably solid strategic plans. We've already compromised those plans by allowing a supermarket that wasn't in the strategic location that it should have been in to comply and meet the desires of those plans. That's one thing. We've probably allowed some other relatively small things incrementally to pop up around the place that probably aren't totally consistent with the strategic planning. However, they probably meet the statutory planning if you look at that in isolation. The thing about this is every incremental decision that we make that allows something to happen outside of the strategic planning or the town centre means the town centre goes back a bit further and a bit further in time, because economics are the things that generally drive what happens with town centre type developments, and if we don't get the momentum and the impetus right and we undermine it through incremental actions, then we undermine our strategic planning. And frankly, I believe what we're doing with this decision is undermining our strategic planning. In terms of the things it might say about under the statutory rules of a particular application, I'm not particularly concerned about that. That could make a decision that could go either way. But we are undermining our strategic planning, and we're undermining it to the extent that we probably should now be considering removing the town centre and going on with a different approach to the whole thing. Because once this thing gets undermined, you can't sustain it. And a developer can come in and say, well, I'm doing something different. And they roll out all the precedents of decisions that we've made and justify the reasons why they should be allowed to do something different. And each one of those breaks down the town centre. So for all those reasons, I'm not going to support that tonight. And I accept I'm probably going to be the only one that votes that way. Thank you. Question, Councillor Simberdorfer.
After listening to that argument, then how is, if this proposal does get up, and you just said that going down a path where it's really hard to undo, hasn't that already been done with it being appointed of the supermarket outside the CBD anyway? What's the difference there?
Yeah, as I said, Councillor Simberdorfer, I believe that's significantly undone the PSP and the DCP already. It's probably not in itself enough to completely wipe it out, but every incremental decision we make, which we've been making a few, increases the likelihood that the central business area will either be pushed back to the never never or just won't happen. Yeah, Councillor Lowe, you reserved.
Yeah, I acknowledge what my fellow councillors are saying, and then won't get into a planning debate, so to speak. I'll take the expertise from the officers' recommendations that it does fit within and can fit within. But I'll talk about our city and our community. We have a community out there, and I acknowledge that we've got 38 objections, but I can't tell you how many phone calls I've received to say that they're in full support of this thing. What I will highlight is the fact that the developer has worked with the planning department and reduced the Bowser numbers, the hours of operation, had traffic islands put into the thing, the design, the lighting. They've made adjustments to all that to suit the environment that it's going into. And we're a city, Barranduda is going to be as big as Wodonga. And if you have a look at Wodonga, we've got White Box Rise, we've got Mirrorlee, we've got these satellite shopping centres all the way around it, and we've got service stations around that. So this argument about, yes, we've got the planning for a central business district there, but we're not going to stick all our service stations in the central business district. They need to support the outer lying areas too. And I can see this service station being supported as much as APCO in Wodonga. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with APCO in Wodonga, but if you ever driven past that service station, it is packed all the time. Yet it is on residential thing. Yeah, it backs onto some industrial land there, but it's servicing a community there, a community out there. And when that application went in, I'm not sure how many objections that had back then, but there would have been some too for the same sort of fears that were there. The simple fact is, you're talking to delays, whether the CBD will go ahead. It's a developer's decision, and they decide things by money. And I'll tell you what, if they make the wrong move, then they won't get supported and their development will die. That's just the way business works. They've obviously done their due diligence and they believe that a supermarket will be, a service station will be profitable here, and the community will vote. They'll either pull up at those Bowsers or they won't. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Councillor Chamberlain to close.
Okay, can I just say that by definition, this is a difficult decision. If it wasn't a difficult decision, if there weren't a number of submissions from the public, this would have been done under delegation by the planning department. Accordingly, this is the first service station development during my tenure that has come to Ports Council, and that doesn't mean that I'm pro or anti-service stations, but I'm certainly pro the development in Barranduda, and I think it needs a service station. As I said, my decision tonight will be one on balance. I do take on board the opposition and to this development. Having said that, I also state, and I'm not going to bring a decision of a previous council that I wasn't involved in into any disrepute, but there have been other decisions made around the Barranduda development which would affect the timing probably, if nothing else, of the CBD area. But my point on this would be that a service station is probably less of a bar to the CBD going ahead than any other development might be. It can be outside that CBD area without having a negative effect on it, in my opinion. So I think on balance, as I said, it's certainly not a case of 100% one way, but on balance, I will be supporting this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. All those in favour? Councillor Lowe, Councillor Chamberlain, Councillor Hall, Councillor Poulton, Councillor Simpendorfer. Those against? Councillor Quilty, Councillor Mildren. Carried 5-2. The next item on the agenda is item 8.8, Finance and Budget Delegated Committee. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor Chamberlain, as per recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Quilty, Councillor Chamberlain.
Yeah, the recommendations are that the minutes of the Finance and Budget Delegated Committee be received and that the timeline for the 24-25 budget principles and assumptions, which is in the attachment, with the following amendment, that the removal of the principle that the rate increase for 24-25 to be set at the rate cap to be announced in December 2023 be endorsed. Our Finance and Budget Delegated Committee is one of the, I think, the improvements in the way we do things. It's made it more transparent about how we handle our finance and budget systems going forward. The meetings are public, so they're able to be viewed. So if anyone's got any questions about how that meeting happens, you're more than welcome to have a look at it. And the second point there being the removal of the principle of a rate increase for 24-25 be set at the rate cap. I understand that, and the staff will probably always look for as much rates or as much money as they can work with it because it makes their life a lot easier, and I appreciate that. But having said that, we don't want to put into this anything that ties us into a maximum or minimum amount prior to seeing what we've got to work with. So it may very well be that we have to go ahead with the rate cap, but if we leave that in there, it doesn't give us the flexibility to go above or below the rate cap, and I don't think that's appropriate. So that's why I've moved it accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. Councillor Quilty? Reserve. Any other councillors wish to speak? No? Councillor Quilty, you're reserved.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. Indeed, I use this opportunity again to invite viewers who can spare some time during a work day after lunch on occasional Monday to view our Finance and Budget Committee meetings. At the previous Finance and Budget Committee meetings, we talked about the schedule. We are going to workshop and look at our budget as a committee. Also, we discussed the principles and the assumptions and the approach to how we're going to build the budget in the coming months. And we had a discussion about short discussion about the difference between the assumptions that we make for the budget and the principles. The assumptions are something that we use our initial position. For example, that rate increase will be such and such, for example, 2.5% or 3%. And this is our starting point that gives us a figure where to start and where to build the budget. And it will be changed many, many times through the months when we know the actual rate increase, when we know the actual cap, when we know our expenses, and last but not the least, by far not the least, when we have heard from the community. The principles is what we have at heart when we're building the budget, and they are responsibility, financial prudency, thinking about how our decisions about big capital works and maintenance will affect the future generations, etc., etc. And having the following the rate cap or taking the rate cap or not taking the rate cap as a principle, I thought was not appropriate. It's good to have it as an assumption to start somewhere, but to have as a principle to take the rate cap is the decision, or not to take the rate cap, is the decision that needs to be based on weeks and months of budget work, not something that we hold at heart when we're building our budget. Therefore, I support the recommendation of Finance and Budget Committee with the change that has been mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quilty. No other councillors? Councillor Chamberlain.
Yes, can I just reiterate the fact that the appropriate rate cap will be announced at the end of the year. The first chance that the council will get to take that on board and discuss it will be at our Finance and Budget Delegated Committee meeting at the end of January. And that gives our staff the direction to go ahead. They're already working very hard, as they always do, in order to get us prepared for the budget. And once we know what the possible rate cap will be, our next meeting, which I believe is Monday the 29th of January, at about 1 p.m, I would again say to people, if you're interested in this stuff, it's all numbers, it's boring to some of us, but it's absolutely critical. And if you're interested in what goes on, that meeting is public and can be viewed either in person or online. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Councillor Lowe, Councillor Chamberlain, Councillor Hall, Councillor Mildren, Councillor Poulton, Councillor Quilty. Those against? Councillor Simpendorfer. The motion is carried 6-1. The next item is 9 reports for noting, of which there are none. The next item is item 10, 10.1, the record of councillor meetings. Anybody wish to make comment or draw anything to attention? No. 10.2 is the decisions register. No comments. 10.3 is the Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes. Okay. Sorry, that Mr. CEO wishes to make a reference to an administrative typographical error.
Councillors, in the minutes, there's a 2023 that should be a 2024. It is an administrative error. It's very obvious in the minutes, and we will correct that under an administration process. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 10.4, the Audit and Risk Committee Annual Report. No comments. Item 11 is notices of motion, of which there are none. Item 12, general business. Does anybody wish to? Councillor Poulton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick congratulations to the Wodonga Little Athletics team that put on a really good competition on Saturday. That I think really was successful off the back of Albury having a massive open day on the Sunday. A lot of attendees from as far as Swan Hill, Pakenham, all around actually doubled up and probably made 2 nights stay here instead of a single night stay for Albury's comp, and they came along to really well organised Wodonga Little Athletics event, which ran for all the morning and a little bit into the afternoon. Having not been to one because not been present in the past few years with my family, my wife seems to do them all. She'd warned me that how friendly and warm the members were in the previous years when our kids have been there competing on this particular event, and the other parents taking them under their wings and things like that. So it was just wonderful to sit in the shade and that lovely little facility there with the grass track and watch that particular Wodonga Little Athletics Club, do a really good thing, not just for their own competitors, but those from right around the state of Victoria. So I just thought it was worth a congratulations to them tonight, because it was the first time I've seen that particular event firsthand. They did a wonderful job, and obviously there's economic flows from them holding something like that. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Poulton. Councillor Simpendorfer?
Really quickly, just to the event staff, if there are any listening or around, just obviously Friday nights in the square got a little wet. I couldn't make that one, but I understand they obviously dealt with that as best they can, and the Mayor and Deputy Mayor and others were there. But then following up on the Saturday, I did able to get down there and see, I think, record numbers, and the event staff put on an amazing show. Everything there just worked, and all the vendors and the facilities and parking and everything just worked, and I think drawing people into that city centre obviously is a future, so excited what that may be, but congratulations to the event staff mainly, and all the councillors that went along too.
Thank you, councillor Simpendorf. Councillor Chamberlain.
Yeah, can I just reiterate what Councillor Simpendorf has just stated? I was lucky enough to get to the Friday in the Square event. Thankfully, just after the rain squall went through. That made it very difficult, obviously, for numbers, but the feeling around the place and the professionalism of the staff was on show, and they did a fantastic job. And again, on Saturday, I got to call into the fruit fly demonstration in the Junction Square. Astounding. And the crowd there was just fantastic, and it's a wonderful way to use our city centre. And again, appreciate the event staff who always do a wonderful job. I haven't heard a single person complain about how we've been putting on our events, and they're a credit to our town. Thank you.
Councillor Lowe.
Yeah, I'd just like to remind our community that Albury Wodonga Health have their annual general meeting tomorrow, and I'm really looking forward and encourage our community to get down and listen to the responses to our questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Stole my thunder, I was going to mention that one too. A bit of housekeeping really in a way, but I would like to advise that Council has received a letter in response to Council's October letter from the Minister for Local Government. It was received on Tuesday, December 5 from the Honourable Melissa Horn MP, Minister for Local Government. Given the short time frame since receipt of the letter, the need to provide time for research and report on the content, and it being after the close of the business paper for this current meeting, the matter is not listed on tonight's agenda. Furthermore, there are matters for clarification and discussion with the Minister's office to ensure all relevant information is available to councillors prior to formulating our response. The Minister visited Wodonga on Wednesday last on other business, and I, with the CEO, had an opportunity to speak privately and directly with the Minister and the Chief of Staff regarding this matter. The Minister's letter requested a 3-monthly update from Council regarding ongoing practices and improvements to governance and to council culture. The conversation with the Minister led to a request that we confer with the senior department staff to garner the detail expected of our response. After general discussion with councillors this morning, I've requested that the CEO confer with appropriate departmental staff and to subsequently place the matter on the agenda for a councillor briefing early in the new year and followed with a report to the February council meeting. Thank you. Moving right along. Urgent late business, of which there is none. We're moving to confidential. Can I have a motion that we move into confidential? Councillor Chamberlain, Councillor Quilty. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you to the gallery and to the audience at home. Thanks for your participation. Look forward to seeing you at the next council meeting. Welcome back for those who've hung around to stay watching. We're up to item 16.2, adopt the in-camera recommendations. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor Chamberlain, Councillor Hall, as recommended. No discussion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Unanimously carried. Mr. CEO, would you care to read out the public resolutions, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In regards to item 14.3, Finance and Budget Delegated Committee Community Centre Service Review, the public component of the recommendation is that the confidential council resolution on the Community Centre Service Review be released following notification of the relevant parties involved. In relation to item 14.4, Australia Day Awards, the public component of the resolution is that the names of the 2024 Australia Day Award winners be publicly released at a time or times to enable sufficient notice to be given to the award winners and to maximise the public recognition of the awards either through media channels or at the Australia Day ceremony. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. There being no further business, I declare the meeting closed at 8:29.
I think it's 8:30.
I got 8:29.
It says 8:30 here and it says 8:30 here and it says 8:30 in the competition.
Mine's analogue, old school. It's right.
So you've got a parallax error.
That's it.
Do you know what a parallax error is?
No.